President Daniels has been in office for how long? 10 months. He's still a freshman. By the way, Chancellor Zinfer, in addition to her former position, she would probably be the equivalent of, well, a postdoctoral. I am a rising senior. But back to the introduction of President Daniels. Before he became president, he was, as you all know, a two-term governor of the state of Indiana. And he followed 16 years of Democratic governors. And before he was in that position, he was director of the Office of Management and the Budget under President George W. Bush. And I'm told that President Bush had a nickname for him, the Blade, because of his acumen in cutting the budget. President Daniels.
Dr. Lowe and good friends of American higher education, I'm wondering, so you must really be wondering, what McPherson was thinking when he asked, with all the choices that he had, when he asked me or someone like me to be part of this program today. And I had theories, you know, freshman hazing maybe, although I gather that's probably frowned on in this crowd. I do remember that distantly that the new kid in class was quite often called on at show and tell time, so maybe that's it. But I'll use these few minutes to give you a glimpse of how we at Purdue are looking at the challenges at which we're all looking, but I hope never to slip over the line into anything that sounds presumptuous enough to make you think we have all the answers. I get asked day after day, you know, to compare and contrast this life with my previous lives in business or in elected office. Sometimes I tell people, well, in my last job it was dog eat dog, and now it's just the opposite. And there are adjustments, of course. One which is relevant to the few comments I'm about to make has to do with the speed at which we operate in higher education, which can fairly be described as deliberate. I was sitting in a meeting with some of my wonderful colleagues at Purdue not too long ago, and an old story, I hadn't thought of it in years, suddenly flashed into my mind. The story goes that a turtle is mugged by a gang of marauding snails, and when the cop gets there, he says, "Who did this to you?" He says, "I don't know, officer. It all happened so fast." So one's frame of reference for what big change is, or how fast change can and should be made, can be different depending on the walk of life. My own sense is, maybe some of yours too, that we have arrived at a moment where someone, each of us hopes we're in the category that this describes, will make wise changes and make them swiftly enough to fulfill our mission, our obligations to students and to society, and to navigate some of the more turbulent waters that anyone who's ever sat in any of your seats has had to face. So let me tell you things that you know better than I am. Here I am in front of a room full of experts as probably the most junior person here. That's very, very hard to imagine that any question I've thought about, any potential answer that we've thought about, you haven't long since run through. But when I listen to the questions being asked about higher education across the country, over and over again, I'm struck by the thought, what a great time to be involved with universities like ours, the public and land-grant universities. We are, at least potentially we are, the answer to the toughest questions being posed day after day. Are too many kids going to school? Are they studying the useful things and right things while they're there? Is there any rigor in the study? What's a diploma mean? Why does it take so long to finish? And of course, beneath all that, why does it cost so darn much? I don't believe we can deny the legitimacy of any of those questions. And I doubt that there anyone here who is still laboring in any state of denial about them. And my view is that our standard historic answers, while they have validity, are in many cases not fully persuasive. I mean, among examples, to say that the lifetime earnings of college graduates are inevitably going to be dramatically higher in the future, we don't know that. All we know is what's in the rearview mirror. And coming down today, I'm reading an article in the Journal of Issues in Science and Technology, it was. New research from our friends at Lumina suggesting that for some reason, first, at least early earnings of associate degree holders and those with less than a 4-year bachelor's may be as high or higher in the states they studied than graduates of 4-year education, all averaged together. Our arguments about funding, that it's the federal government's fault, it's the state government's fault. I remember reading somewhere that Calvin Coolidge once said about the demands that the Europeans repay the borrowing after the First World War. He said, well, they hired the money. Winston Churchill said, true, but not exhaustive. And that's my reaction to some of the things that we have said. I mean, yes, state spending has declined, but it would have, as a percentage of what we're spending, but it would have been a little hard to keep up. Same is true on the research side. That very same journal, as a matter of fact, had another interesting article about the new normal in research funding, and it gently pointed out that the dramatic expansion in research infrastructure over the last decade or two also made it next to impossible to sustain the rates of growth that we'd been used to. So I think we have to be open and thoughtful about the criticisms we're facing, but we can face them with a story no one else can match. Now, we make no pretense at Purdue to having all the answers, but I'll just give you a very brief summary, the program on which we're embarked, at least for our university. We think answers or addresses these questions and the marvelous mission in which we're all involved. We have decided to invest even more heavily in our STEM. We like to say STEAM because of the high-tech nature of agriculture, as taught at Purdue University and at most of yours. And as a school that already graduates more engineers and technologists in absolute numbers than anyone, we are planning actually a double, two-step expansion of that school. It's been said, you've all read the commission reports, America needs at least 10,000 more engineers. We intend to supply 6 to 8% of the answer just as one university. We are going to grow our computer science school by 27% and our College of Technology by a similar dimension. And on our part, this represents a sense that as a matter of mission, as a matter of reinforcing strength, and as a matter of meeting state and national needs, this is our best course and our duty going forward. We have revamped completely our mechanism, our ecosystem, as they like to say, for technology transfer off our campus. So much brilliant research on our campus, probably far more than has found its way into useful place in the marketplace and in society at large. We've changed our IP policies. We've centralized responsibility for tech transfer. We've tried to take down every barrier we can find, save only those that protect intellectual integrity. We now believe at our school, I'm sure you're the same, that our success can only be measured by the success of our students. That what matters is not the quality coming in the door, but the quality at graduation. That any failure of any student is our failure and one that we have to learn from and strive not to allow to happen again. We've transformed, as many of you have, dozens and dozens of our courses to the new, apparently more efficacious models. We're going to bring more students on campus where we statistically know that they are more likely to do well if they are living there. We are going to expand as far as we can, we hope, to a full trimester system, our use of the summer. We're going to try to master all the new tools of so-called learning analytics that might help us identify students struggling, but while there's still time, might find constantly more effective ways to teach each student. But even before we move into that brave world, we recognize that we've put some barriers in the path of student success before, forcing far too many to change majors without enough credit coming along with it, coming along from the work they've done before. And again, I mentioned summertime. We need to make far more credit hours available in the summertime. You know, I've got a colleague who swears that she attended a meeting at another university, not an APLU university, not that many years ago. The subject of the meeting was, how do we get the fifth-year numbers up? What a stunning idea that is. You know, the meetings we want to have at Purdue are, how do we get the three-year numbers up? We don't want students to have to stay a day beyond the traditional 4 years, and our goal ought to be to see how many we could help move through more quickly. And like each of you I know, we accept the need for new dimensions of accountability. I was planning to praise anyway the student achievement measure that this organization has put together. Even in my past life, I was astonished that we would all operate on such bad information or such inadequate information. And so a salute to Sally and Peter and all the leadership who are finally going to bring some clarity and accuracy to the progress measures that we've had before. But we don't see it stopping there. We intend at Purdue to measure the growth of our students while at Purdue and their success thereafter, and not just their material success, but working with a national research organization familiar to everyone in the room. We'll soon have an index, and we hope that many of you will choose to use it as well, for measuring the life success and satisfaction of our graduates, X and 2X and 3X years after they leave us. I guess I would simply finish by saying that when I reflect on the largest threats to our free society and to our success as a country, we who are privileged to work in institutions like those gathered in this room are squarely in a position to deal with at least two of the three that bother me the most. First, the need for more and more and more well-educated, and particularly technically educated citizens who can succeed in an information economy and understand the context of doing so in a free society. And secondly, to push back against this really discouraging bimodal division of social distance, which we now see and which scholars are chronicling more and more all the time. We are the ones who have campuses both large enough and diverse enough, and if we do our jobs open and accessible enough, that more students will than today from all income levels will have the opportunities that were depicted in that video that you must hear about from your graduates all the time, as I do. If I had a nickel already in 10 months for every time someone has said to me, if not for Purdue, or I owe it all to Purdue. You must, I see so many folks nodding. This is what a magic mission to be offered in life that we have. And so I just want to say to each person here how privileged I feel to be among you. We will have to do some things differently, in my opinion. At Purdue, we have frozen tuition. We're in the first year of a 2-year tuition freeze. We cut the price of food, our second most expensive item, along with our most frequently used internship programs. For thousands of our students, it is less expensive to be on our campus this fall than it was last fall. I don't know how far we can extend that, but that's going to be our policy going forward. We're going to let our quality speak for itself, not our sticker price. In a previous life, I used to hang around with the neuroscientists at Lilly, Eli Lilly and Company, the business I thought I'd be retiring from about now, if life hadn't changed. And they were not known necessarily as a fun bunch, but they did have one joke that I enjoyed a lot, and that's come back to mind lately, which is, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is, just one, but the bulb has to really want to change. Everyone I've been able to meet so far in this great endeavor of public universities, I think wants to change prudently and wisely and quickly enough that we can answer society's questions, meet society's needs. I cannot tell you how privileged I feel and how grateful I feel that late in life I had the chance to be among you. How envious I am that so many of you have gotten to live your lives in this noblest of endeavors. Thank you very much.